Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk you through how to answer question 7a and question 7b on paper 2 of the Edexcel GCSE English language. I'm using the June 2017 papers and there's a link to download the paper at the underneath in the comments. Okay, so the question 7a and question 7b are both about comparing texts. Okay, 7a is only 6 marks and you're only looking for similarities. So you need to use the question to help you to remember where it says both. You need to use this word both in your answers if you can. The similarities they're asking you to find here is what similarities did the writers share in this extract. Okay, but be careful because both of these extracts in this paper are in first person. So the writer is the same as the main character. It's a first person narration. But be careful because often the similarities they're asking you to find are about the main person or the main focus, the main character, or the main thing that the text is written about. So it might not always be about the writers. So just be careful that don't read the question really carefully because it might not be about the writers when you actually do the exam. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is quickly, in case you don't have the paper in front of you, I'm just going to scroll through both texts so that you can read them if you haven't done so already. Obviously pause it where you need to so that you can read it properly. If not, you can just scroll ahead to the end of this bit. Okay, so this is text 1. And this is text 2. Okay, so now we're going to look at how to answer this question. So as I said, the key word here, because it's always similarities, is the word both. Okay, and to the right here, I've got an example of the way that you can answer this in a really quick, concise way, because remember, it's only 6 marks. You don't want to waste loads of time on this question, and you're just looking for sort of factual information. So what you need to do is write in both texts and then show a similarity, and then a quote from text 1 and a quote from text 2. So here we've got what you need to think about. So here you're looking for the similarities about the writers, so about the narrator, and also you need to find 2 or 3 and a short bit of evidence, and don't explain too much. Okay, there's not really marks for explanation here. There's just marks for finding 2 or 3 good similarities, and then in your point really, in where it says in both texts, then you're explaining there how they're similar. Okay, you don't need a whole separate explanation. Okay, and here is a good concise example of what we mean. Both writers describe a downgrade in space for their belongings. Text 1 narrates a downgrade to 30 by 30 by 70 centimetres space, whereas text 2's is a house with 2 small but ship-shaped bedrooms. Okay, so really you've just got a point that shows that you're comparing a similarity, and then you've got 2 bits of evidence. Okay, so if you just do that 3 times, then you should be able to get 6 marks. I'll just give you another example. No, sorry, there isn't another example there. What I'll do is I'm going to show you some of the other examples which are on the mark scheme. Okay, so here are some of the answers that are on the mark scheme. So can you see they've started off, both writers make sure they have some significant mementos, and then a couple of examples, or both texts show the writers have to leave some emotional attachments, 2 examples. So you see there's loads of examples here. So there should be plenty of things that you can compare. And obviously you only need to find 2 or I would go for 2, and then if you have time put a third on, because really you're aiming to get, if you're wanting to get a 4 or 5, you're aiming to get about 4 marks on this one. Okay, so I think if you're stuck for time, you're better off finding a couple of similarities here and then spending the rest of your time doing 7b. Okay, so we're going to move on to 7b now. Okay, so 7b will always be worded like this: compare how the writers of text 1 and text 2 present their ideas and perspectives about, and then it will be whatever the text is about. So in this case, it's about possessions. Okay, support your answer with detailed references to the text. So you need to make sure you're putting your quotes in here again. Now this is 14 marks, so you need to make more lengthy peel paragraphs here, and you also need to be doing, probably you need to have a range of comparisons, so at least 3 if you can. Now one top tip for 7a and 7b is write something. Okay, so many people run out of time or run out of momentum or energy and just don't write anything for 7a and 7b. Examiners are pretty generous on these questions. So if you've written something which is vaguely related, just some fact or some really like straightforward comparison, you'll get like 1 or 2 marks. Okay, examiners will very rarely give 0 marks if you've written something. So even if you're really stuck for time, just have a go. All right, but I'm going to show you, hopefully you won't be run out of time. I'm going to show you how you can do a decent answer to this one. Okay. Okay, so here's a little summary of how to do it. So presenting their ideas and perspectives is, so presenting is obviously the way that they've written, so how they've chosen to put their point of view across, but also what their ideas and perspectives are. So, and in this case, you could write about similarities or differences. Okay, and quite a good way to write about that is to find something that's similar but a bit different as well. Okay, so a good way to start comparing is do a paragraph comparing the PAF. So the PAF is the purpose, audience, and format. So obviously there's going to be a bit of similarity because the chief examiner has chosen to put these 2 texts in the exam paper. They've obviously got some connection, okay, and they've told you what that is. They've said it's about possessions. So both texts are about possessions. However, text 1 is written for, and then who are the target audience, and what's the main theme and idea of it? How is it written? Is it a diary? Is it whatever? And then compare that to text 2 and who the audience is, what the main idea of that one is. Okay, so you see what I mean? So that straight away you've easily got a paragraph there. And then I think for a more decent mark, see if you can think about the writer's attitudes. Okay, so this won't always be as straightforward because it might not be a particularly strong opinion, but you can think about what's the tone of it. Is it positive or negative? Is it for or against? Is it biased in some way? Is it kind of more emotive, or is it more factual? That kind of thing. So those are really good things to compare, especially if you can get a good little bit of evidence to go with it. Okay, so by good evidence, I don't mean like quoting a whole sentence or paragraph, but see if you can quote a short extract which really backs up your point of view. Okay, and also you can compare, because it's how they present their ideas, you can compare the use of language. So you can say, for example, one of them uses more humour, one of them uses more facts than the other, one of them uses metaphors or something, or they both use metaphors, but this one uses it for this purpose and this one uses it for another purpose, something like that. Or do they have different themes and ideas in there? Okay, so is one of them, like I said before, being more positive or more negative? Really, to be quite frank, just compare, find something to compare. Okay, that's the main thing, is they're testing your comparison skills. Okay, so the way that you can write about that, here's an example format. Text 1 is about blah blah blah. The writer uses, so humor or facts or whatever. The effect of this is, and then obviously putting your quote in there as well. And then, however, if you're making a difference, or similarly, if it's something the same, in text 2, the writer uses blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples here. Okay, so this one is the preciousness of simple possessions is emphasized by the first text through use of words and phrases like barest essentials to serve you for the next 7 years, and the use of hold it, you're overdoing it a bit, aren't you, after a very basic list of items. This idea is opposed to the second extract with language like unwanted junk used to describe possessions. Okay, so that's great, but you'd need 2 or 3 more of those to have a range of comparisons. Okay, so that would only get you a few marks because there's only one of them. So you'd need to think about finding something else to compare. And look at the next one. This one says, in addition, the first text has a more cynical tone, factual and unrelenting. It's in this backdrop that the harsh reality of the lack of possessions is presented. First 5 books, that says. The second has a more motherly yet humorous tone, which provides a more positive tone. In this way, the two are presented in terms of tone are very different. Okay, so tone is a really good one to compare if you can, because a lot of students find picking up on tone very difficult. So if you can manage to do that, then that will impress the examiner and might put you up into a higher mark band. Okay, and again, I'm just showing you the mark scheme here to show you some more ideas of things you can compare. Now, the interesting thing here I find is that if you have a look down the left side, nearly all of these paragraphs of examples start with both texts. And so what they've done really is in their examples, they've kind of used a similarity, but then found a difference as well. So for example, if we have a look at this one, the third one down, both texts use a mix of formal and mainly informal language. So that's a similarity. While both texts are on serious topics, both writers manage to create some humour or use irony. Okay, so there you've got mostly similarities. Okay, whereas this one, both texts are mainly about feelings. Both writers use a lot of personal pronouns. For example, text 1, they use you. Whereas, so we've got a difference, text 2 uses I and we to show a more personal experience, but also you. Okay, so you're kind of mixing it up, using similarities and differences. Okay, so as you can see, really, pretty much anything goes here as long as you're comparing and you're talking about what the writer's choosing to do to put their point of view across, like the techniques that the writer's using and the tone, etc., etc., then you'll be getting marks on this one. Okay, so do have a go at 7B. It's actually, I think, where you can really pick up those extra marks. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful, and look out for my final video in these GCSE papers, which will be on the writing section of paper 2. Okay, thank you, bye.